across across India, as we speak, several regions are facing floods or droughts or some of the other climatic catastrophe. We also have seen that our neighboring countries, especially Pakistan, was devastated because of impacts of climate change. More than 1,500 people lost their lives, and many parts in China as well are facing severe drought and flood situations. And it's not just our neighboring countries, but across the globe. Several regions in Africa already, uh, where there is no water, they are facing severe, even more severe droughts. Uh, many of the European nations are as well facing severe drought, and surprisingly, places where it never rained so much, such as Gulf countries, such as Oman and Saudi Arabia, and many more countries in the Gulf region as well, are facing severe floods, which they were never prepared for. Because at least in other regions where there is constant rain, or where there is at least minimal preparedness for heavy rainfall or floods, and that is not the case. But in Gulf countries, they never prepared for floods, and they never even thought of having floods. And suddenly, when flash floods come in, it really devastates the economy and the people. In Kerala, if we look around, over the past 4 to 5 years, there has been severe impacts of climate change. Uh, Impacts of climate change from multiple aspects. There are floods occurring, which then hinder economy for a long period. Even the 2008 floods it still has an impact on the economy, and it's still continuing. And as we speak again, some parts are getting flooded. Then connecting to that, then there are landslides as well, which then aggravate the situation. Landslides caused due to heavy rainfall, and the coastal region that we have, the long coast that we have, is also been impacted extensively, because many communities, fishing communities, who have been impacted by coastal erosion and frequent coastal issues, are also a major threat to the state. Now, while doing the climate leadership program in Kerala, one of the major discussions was that when we actually look around us, and when we ask people around us, and see what is their knowledge on climate change, most of them would say yes, there is climate change happening, there is heat is increasing, and then there is floods happening and coastal issues happening. Yes, they know this. And if you also ask, what is the solution? Is it a natural thing? Can't we stop it? And can't we reduce the impact? And when we discuss such things, most of them say, yes, we need to reduce our emissions, or we need to reduce our consumption, and we need to manage waste properly. So this is the maximum that people around us know. Now, this is when we realize that there is a lack of communication material in local language available for people around the state to understand climate change, and to process the knowledge, and probably to take action. Only if you know what can be done can you also contribute to that action. So that's how we decided to identify the most important things that Kerala as a state has to do in order to tackle the climate crisis. And as part of that, we have launched a series of like a month-long process of identifying solutions, discussing it with experts, getting expert opinions, and also over the last couple of years, we have closely worked with organizations such as Purpose and ASUR and A-Tree, and so many more, Kerala Startup Mission, etc. And based on the work that we've done with them, and the research that we have been working on, various research aspects as well, and the work with NICO as well, we have identified some of the most important solutions that we need to work on for promoting or reducing impacts of climate change, or to say build resilience. Now, if you take the case of Kerala, Kerala is a state which is on the receiving end of climate change, because as such the net contribution of emissions from Kerala is very minimal. uh, that is the, I mean, that is the case of most of the states in India. Nevertheless, compared to others, lot many industrialized states, Kerala's emissions is quite less, but the amount of impacts it is facing of because of climate change is quite high. So now there is a the popular debate that happens across the globe, or the popular push happens across the globe, has been and even funding is going towards efforts to carbon emission mitigation, which is trying to reduce emissions. Governments are trying to reduce emissions. Governments are trying to, try and reduce the amount of emissions, or try to reduce energy consumption, which is all important. But if you actually look into the current scenario, we have already done the mess up that already has to be done. Like it's the global the global crisis of global warming has impacted every region, and the major contributor has not been India or Kerala or any of the developing nations. We also contributed, but not a major contributor. The biggest contributors have been the developed nations, which has been has is still continuing to emit, um, uh, and then not trying to limit as well. So considering that we are on the receiving end, and considering that we now clearly know that every year from now on is going to be disastrous for us, um, we need to work on building resilience and helping our communities to adapt. This is the case for every state in India. Uh, now, what does building resilience or trying to adapt means is that now we know that, clearly know that coastal floods or coastal erosion is going to happen. We know flooding is going to happen. We know droughts are going to be a common thing. So how can we adapt? How can we build resilience? How can our community build resilience? How can a community, let's say in a panchayat in Alua, which has been frequently flooded, build resilience and live with the floods and recoup? As soon as the floods come, they should be able to recoup and be back to normal within a week's time. It shouldn't take more than that. If it takes more than that, means their livelihood is affected, their food habits, the food gets affected, their normal way of living gets affected, education gets affected, their health gets affected. Now what happens is, when a disaster strikes, almost for 2 to 3 months they would be in a very tough situation. So this has to reduce to less than a week, so that they adapt to the situation. And most importantly, we also need to try and see how we can reduce the impacts of future climate disasters. Like, for example, if there is a flood happening, how can we reduce the impacts of flood? For example, if we have more sponges or more paddy fields, it can absorb a lot of water, and or if we restore a lot of paddy fields, it can help in reducing impacts of flood. If we revive the rivers, it can help in faster flow of water, push the water towards the ocean, so on. So there are so many things that we can do in order to build resilience, and in order to we can mitigate future impacts of climate change. And that's how we came up with the most important 15 solutions for climate change. Now, if we look into it, uh, after we launched the video, a lot of people said there are even more solutions. Yes, there are even more solutions, but this particular video and this particular concept was released primarily because we could then just Yeah, so this particular concept was developed based on some of the most important solutions that we could identify based on conversation with experts. And the idea is also that, can we simplify the knowledge of solutions and convey it in a very easiest way possible in local language itself? Because most of us, when we were in college or school, when we wanted to know more about climate change or related issues, there was very less document available or very less videos available on the same. And even now, it is the same case. There are videos in English, there are documents in English, there are research reports in English, there are big PDFs talking about the solutions. There are even the state action plan on climate change, but everything is in English. So we are trying to simplify the communication of the solutions in Malayalam, so that more and more people could understand, more and more people could recognize and work with the government to take action. So that's how we had come up with some of these important solutions. Uh, I'll just start with it. I hope you got a background of the reason why we had done this. Now, starting with the solutions that we have identified, and I'll also tell you why and how each one of us can contribute towards it, so that you get a more clearer idea on why what the solution is, how can we contribute as. So I'll start from in the list, the least important. Obviously, all are equally important, but in the list, we have identified based on the most important ones. So I'll start from the least important towards the most important one. Uh, sorry. So the 15th one that is there is the climate resilient and green infrastructure. Now, Kerala as a state, like unlike every other states, as we develop, we create more infrastructure. We create infrastructure for offices. We create infrastructure for houses. We create infrastructure for roads and transportation and whatnot. Now, but while we do this, many a time we forget the concept of sustainable development. We forget the concept of reducing the risk of future disasters. We don't really look into whether an infrastructure project that we're coming up with, or even for that matter, our own houses that we develop or build, is it having an impact on the environment? So considering that India is certainly going to grow only in the coming years. More and more infrastructure is expected, more and more construction is expected, more and more roads and houses and buildings are expected. So but this is a point where we have to stop and think of how we can uh, build resilient and green infrastructure. Resilient infrastructure is infrastructure that is resilient to future disasters, and green infrastructure is something where we reduce the impact of the infrastructure as much as possible for the environment and its people. Some of the examples are that if we are building a house, we need to make sure that it's not a huge house. Like most of us builds end up building 2 or 3 story houses nowadays. It's become a trend. Even for that matter, like my house itself is a 2 story house in Kerala, which was built 15 or 16 years back by my parents. But at that point, this was the trend and everyone just wanted to follow that, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Now the bigger the house you have, the better is what everyone says. But I would say the smaller the house, the more planned the house, it's better for you and the environment as well. Now, what is the reason behind talking about smaller houses? Or so is also because we consume a lot of natural resources for building houses, and one of major of main resources is cement. Cement consumes a lot of cement production produces a lot of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, and production of cement itself is becoming harder and harder because of the various minerals it requires to produce. So if we have smaller houses, then better for the environment. And the second thing is increasing efficiency of the houses. Now, particularly energy efficiency. So now most of the houses that we build or have electric uh, electric systems which are quite inefficient. Most of them have consumes a lot of energy, and we end up building air conditioners. But if you actually look into the houses and infrastructure, many of them are not well insulated, because of which even if we put an air conditioner or so, it has to work for more than usual time, because of the fact that a lot of cool, a lot of heat comes in, and then that leads to the AC, air conditioner, to be working for more hours. The same way, lighting as well. The As we move to more energy efficient lighting, the better. Now, considering infrastructure in terms of public infrastructure, such as roads and transportation infrastructure and so on, a lot of the infrastructure projects currently, um, where we require building it on wetlands and so on, or converting forests into infrastructure projects and so on, is having a major impact on the environment. So one of the most important things that we need to do is that we need to ensure that the natural ecosystem that provides us a lot of ecosystem services, we need to protect it, and then we need to ensure that the infrastructure doesn't affect the environment or create more problems. So this is one of the major aspects of sustainable infrastructure. So government and people need to work together into building green and resilient infrastructure, especially in places where in resilient infrastructure also means that we, in places where it is certainly going to get flooded, or coastal areas where certainly there are going to be coastal sea surges, and with sea level rise, water coming in, we need to make sure that even if you have to build something in such regions, you have to make sure that it doesn't affect the natural capacity of that region to reduce the disaster. At the same time, it should also help us, it should also not affect the families. For example, in a place like Kutanad, which is a wetland region with a lot of paddy fields, uh, a lot of the now government is pushing for houses to be built on stilts, because we know Kutanad is going to be flooded. It's more like the bucket of Kerala. All the water flows from across the region to that bucket. Now we know it is going to overflow. So we need to figure out ways through which we can build houses which are resilient as well, so that families doesn't have to really relocate completely or move at that particular point. So building a climate resilient and green infrastructure is very much important for a state like Kerala, because there are in fact the worst one of the worst things that Kerala ever did was develop Kochi as its one of the major metro hubs, and Cochin, the whole Ernakulam district is and was a wetland. Now we have just converted the whole of the district into infrastructure projects, and that is clearly being seen now, because I mean the problem is clearly being seen now because most of Ernakulam is being flooded. Places like Lulu Mall and even Vaitla Hub and all of that places were all wetlands. All of these were paddy fields. Now we have converted them all into huge infrastructure projects, which probably Kochi. I mean, it just happened because of it's a port city and so on, but it shouldn't have been the case. If we knew things before, probably things could have been different. But now now the question is how much more resilient can we make places such as these. The second thing is psychological support. The second thing is, can we provide psychological support for climate refugees or address their mental health issues as part of displacement? Now, mental health is an area which is given less priority or preference, but we are all victims of mental health issues in some way or the other. With the current trends of that we go through, the amount of information we consume, the behavioral changes and all of that, we are all in some way or the other having, I mean, our own impacts of mental health as well. Now, climate disasters just aggravate the situation, right? Just makes it really worse. It also brings a lot of uncertainty to the lives of so many people. I would like to reiterate the word uncertainty to the lives of so many people, because once there is a flood and you get displaced, or if there is a coastal erosion and your house is lost, the whole family's life is in danger, and life is uncertain, because we all have a plan in life. Like, we have a plan, as in you'll graduate and then go for a job, or you get a job and then do something, you build a house. Every family would have ambitions such as these. When that gets disrupted, when that gets disrupted, people, they're, I mean, we are all impacted, and this is a major concern to be addressed. This is a concern where a lot of psychologists, and even I mean, people who are not really impacted by any of the disasters, have to come through and give psychological and emotional support to the families, especially children, because when children get affected, they really suffer a lot, and they end up uh, having extreme depression, some going into anxiety, and so on. Now, one of the ways we can tackle this is by certainly forming groups, support groups, which can talk to them during such a disaster. What happens is, currently there are no groups, not many active groups that work on providing mental support or social, support that can, after a disaster happens. In 2008, yes, 2018 floods, yes, a lot of such groups have was formed, but then it didn't continue its work, is what I know. But some of the work that I know, what happened is that in some of the relief camps, NGOs and organizations have gone and have been trying to do fun games with children, to just to keep them active, mentally active, and give them hope. And some of them ensure to give scholarships, which really boost their mental health. So a lot of such small things can be done to drastically boost the mental health. In fact, in the video, Anjana talks about the mental health issue, and she's here as well. Hi, Anjana. So mental health is a very important issue that we need to look into, and this is not just a case of Kerala. Every state in India, or every other country, will have mental health issues associated to disasters, and government and people needs to work together. Now, if you look into the solutions that we have developed, most of the solutions are also something where both government and people can work together. It's not just that it's only to be done by government. It's also something where people can as well contribute towards it. Now, in terms of mental health support, each one of us can provide support to people, right? And climate refugees is a term that is becoming much more, now we are having more and more climate refugees. Uh, uh, every year the number of climate refugees are increasing, the migration is increasing, climate migration is also on the rise. So so this is where we have to intervene and provide support. Now, the psychological issues or mental health issues also happens when you lose a lot of your belongings, that emotional bonding to your belongings. Most importantly, when you lose things like certificates, college certificates and passport, and important documents such as these, which you really take care of. Now, these are also areas where you can provide tricks and techniques where you can actually protect some of these important documents and such as these, so that, because applying for these again and starting from scratch is a huge process, humongous process. No matter whatever the government says, like, we'll help you get the certificate, it's a lot of work for students who have been impacted by a flood or a disaster, to go and collect all of these and get the documents ready. It's going to be a lot of work, right? So there is also something, that is also something that leads to mental health disaster problems. The other solution, the 13th solution, is climate share in colleges and universities. Now, in regarding to climate action, one of the major contributors could be colleges and universities, because we all know, when we were all in college, we were actively working on some or the other issue, or trying to work with various organizations, or trying to work with the teachers or professors on various projects or innovations. And this is where the role of a climate chair in college comes. Now, there are environment clubs in most of the colleges, but we need a chair. We're proposing a climate chair. The idea is that we need to have a group of professors or faculty or teaching staff, along with a couple of students, who form a chair that plans on identifying areas where the university or the college can intervene in their own local region on a research basis. So the benefit of having a climate chair is that one, they could uh, plan and implement projects in their local region. It could be their local panchayat, it could be their local municipality or municipal corporation, or so on. And most importantly, the climate chair also can now propose research topics that students can take up for their master's dissertation or master's thesis or master's project or graduation project or assignments. How they can link assignments to sustainability. No matter what subject you're studying, you can always link it with sustainability. Let's say if you're doing English, you can always link literature of sustainability in some way or the other to English, or the creative work of poems or so that talks about nature and sustainability. Such things you can always be linked if something related to English. Physics, there is so much physics that can come into sustainability action. Chemistry, there is so much work. Biology, obviously, there is so much to do. So every subject can be some or the other way linked to climate action. If there is a climate chair, this can be done more successfully, because we know most of the projects and assignments that we did, and I mean, yes, it added value to the marks, but it never added value to the society's development or so, because most of it are, even now, some of my assignments are just PDFs in, in my computer or my cloud, or just documents that we printed and kept aside. But this has to change, and the main purpose of having a climate chair is to start innovations, start conversation, and how can the college contribute towards upliftment of the region. Now, one of the ways is also that, if let's say uh, um, if I am a professor at a college in Mohamba, or just in Alapura, and if there is a project happening in one of the panchayats nearby, uh, as a climate chair, as a college having a climate chair, we can actively contribute towards the development of that panchayat, right? Like, we can give innovations, we can give technological suggestions, we can give volunteers, because if you want to do a restoration drive, we have volunteers in. So if you want to do some research, we have volunteers who can go and do participatory research, who can talk to them. So there is so much possibility of a climate chair if we work on a climate chair, a climatic chair. Um, so this is another suggestion that we have in terms of government, if possible. It is something that the government can do or the colleges can do. So we want more and more universities and colleges to come up with a climate chair. This is all of this are just suggestions now. We need to see how we can make it happen, which is a long term going ahead. The 12th one is sustainable menstruation and diapering practices. Now, a lot of people asked why just sustainable menstruation and diapering practices. General plastic waste management is also important. Yes, certainly, general plastic waste management is also important, but we wanted to focus something on specifically on something where there are easy alternatives, and it can create a lot of economic value as well to the communities or people who are using diapering or menstruation products, menstrual products. Um, Sustainable menstruation practices have been something that has been successfully tried and tested in many local bodies across India, where sustainable menstruation products such as cups, cloth pads, etc., were introduced. And successfully, there are stories of whole panchayat, including Mohamba, where I worked, where a major number of people have moved into sustainable menstruation products. This, especially in wetland regions, it makes a lot of sense, because in rural wetland regions, a lot of the women, because of the taboo behind menstruation, they end up just throwing away the synthetic sanitary napkins into water bodies. This was the case in Mohamba, and that's where we intervened. We worked with various groups. We did some research for a very long period, and introduced cups and cloth pads. It's not that we went and started to talk to women, and then this is the alternative, this is what you have to use, and so on. We knew it's going to be a slow process. So what exactly we did is we used the power of the world's the best marketing tool ever. The world's best marketing tool ever is word of mouth marketing. Now that is what we used to do this. So what we did is, Rima, who was working on that project, we and there some of others, they went and started to interact with women groups, asha workers, kudumbashri units, etc. They were telling women how about a new alternative, and they suggested how cloth pads and cups can be used, and so on. They were quite skeptic for sure, because in Muhammad Panjayat, at least a majority of the women only used clothes, old clothes, which was the traditional practice. And buying synthetic sanitary napkins was not something which was easy for them because of the cost they have to incur. So considering that, they proposed such an alternative, and also try to explain them how to use it, how can it be washed, how can it be reused, etc. All of that. It took almost 3 to 4 months at least for a couple of them to try. And but once they started to try, it became really successful, because now they started to talk to their aunt, or sister, or their daughter, and they talked in their neighborhood groups, and everyone wanted to try, because they knew that this is a very easy way that they can adopt. Secondly, they also knew that this saved a lot of cost. Now, the only thing that A3 then did was is to introduce such a product into the community through ASHA workers and so on. Then it just spread like wildfire. The second thing that we did is we figured out ways to subsidize cloth pads and cups. We subsidized the cloth pads and cups at the cups that cost around 500 to 600 was subsidized to 50 rupees per piece, which means they could afford that, and that one cup could stay for at least minimum of 7 years for sure, maximum of 12 to 15 is what some say. Especially my friend who runs Boond was mentioning up to 12 years it can be used. So that's how I know. So and diapering is also something can change drastically, because as of now in many of the states across India there is no proper system to collect used diapers or used pads. So sustainable diapering methods, if can be diapering and menstruation practices, if we can implement, it can drastically reduce the amount of waste that goes into landfills. Now, the reason why we are also suggesting this is also because uh, synthetic sanitary napkins and diapers cannot be recycled like other plastic. Now, most of the plastic that we produce, even though it says it can be recycled, cannot be recycled. Some of them doesn't get recycled. But the curry covers that we throw away, which cannot be recycled, menstrual cups, synthetic sanitary napkins and diapers also cannot be recycled because of the organic content it has, the remains, that is the of blood or stool that remains on the cups and pads and diapers. So for this reason is why we propose this as the 12th solution. Now, going ahead, 11th solution is of promoting sustainable transportation and improving last mile connectivity. This is also something that every other state in India should follow, but especially why we proposed in Kerala is because as we grow, as every state in India grow, the demand for transportation increases. The demand for, especially in cities, the demand for transportation increases, and if we don't have enough road infrastructure, then it leads to congestion, and again, the loop continues. As we all know, uh, the one of the major reason for global emissions have been vehicles. For every liter of petrol or diesel that we burn, we emit around 1.2 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent, and other gases. So which means, let's say if I travel from, let's say, Vaitla to Alua, by the time I reach Alua, I would have emitted 1.2 kilograms of carbon dioxide in the car. This is in the case of Kerala. I mean, just for an example's sake. Now, uh, this is one of the reasons why we need to promote sustainable transportation methods, which certainly is one to promote locally, improve the public transportation facility locally, increase the number of buses, increase the number of comfortable buses that everyone can travel as well. Now, one of the reason why not a majority of the population doesn't take the transportation is also because sometimes it's not comfortable, sometimes it's really uh, there is not enough ventilation, there is not enough neatness. All of these are small factors that repel a lot of people to from taking the normal the transportation methods. So this has to improve. The same way, yeah, there needs to be a drastic improvement in how we can promote electric vehicles across Kerala. Um, and another point to add is improving last mile connectivity. So one of the reasons why a lot of people don't take buses or trains or metros is also the lack of last mile connectivity. Once I reach from Waitla to Alua, now if I want to go to my house, there is not, I will have to walk at least probably 200 or 300 meters to get the nearest bus to go to another place, which is quite hard. So if we have easy last mile connectivity availability, then that can drastically improve the use of public transportation, adoption of public transportation. So uh, having enough last mile connectivity options in railway stations and bus stands is important. And another aspect is also retrofitting. Now retrofitting is a concept where old vehicles can be converted from fuel running vehicles to electric vehicles, especially in the case of auto rickshaws. India is a country with the highlight of itself of India is having the large number of auto rickshaws we have, right? So um, um, converting the old auto rickshaw engines to electric vehicles, which means the owner of the auto doesn't have to necessarily invest a lot on doing that. So if conversion kits are being validated or conversion kits are approved by the government, they can easily convert it for less than a lakh, and they can use that vehicle for as long as 10 years. So if there are incentives for our auto chatam to move to electric vehicles or convert their autos into electric, that can drastically improve the amount of emission that comes out of auto rickshaws, because um, most of the auto rickshaws that run around doesn't have a very efficient engine. They do emit a lot, so having much more efficient engines, which is electric engines and batteries installed inside auto rickshaws, can improve the transportation methods in Kerala. Um, this is not just a case for Kerala. For most of the states, it is applicable, but we consider this as one of the 11th solution as part of the solutions we have identified. The 10th one is climate change and sustainability as a core subject in school. Now we have some of them are confused with the aspect that why have you twice mentioned about the school and college thing. Now the climate chair in college is completely different thing. Climate change chair in college is to have a chair of professors and faculty and students working together to support local projects or support innovations in the college or promote enterprises in the college. But the aspect of having sustainability as a core subject in school is different. I would like to give you an example of a project that I was part of in Alipi in Violet Tree, where we worked on habitat learning. Habitat learning is something where, see, when we nowadays there is a funny thing that everyone says. If we ask the new generation little ones, where does milk come from, they would say the milk come from a factory. They don't know, I mean, they're not really sure if it comes from cow. Like, they don't even know what a cow is probably and or how it's milked. The reason is also the amount of gadgets and information that we've given to them, which they never end up learning the real thing. uh, Now, through the habitat learning project, what we are trying to do is, being a very fragile ecosystem, very diverse ecosystem that Alupura is, We try to inculcate knowledge on local species and their own surroundings to the young children in Alapura. So we got them out of their school and tried to map all the species within a half a kilometer range in their school. So they went out and identified more than 80 different species of insects. They identified at least 20 different species of birds and a lot of frogs and such stuff like that, and a lot of plant species as well. And they try to understand their own ecosystem. So even when we ask young ones nowadays, what are the species that are outside in the ecosystem or outside, they would say there is lion, there is tiger, there is cow, there is dog. But that is not what is there around us, right? There are birds, there are different types of birds. It's not just any bird or just pigeon or sparrow, but there are many types of birds just around us. There are many types of insects that are around us. So understand, helping them understand that is important. So uh, we proposed the solution of having a climate change and sustainability as a core subject in school, because they are the ones who are certainly the young ones that we are growing is certainly the ones who are going to suffer a lot because of the current mess that we have already created. Now, because of which we need to inculcate knowledge on sustainability, sustainable living, uh, very basic concepts on climate change. I guess everything that I tell now has to be known by a young one as well. So having it as a core subject in school is very important. We need to promote policies that can do that, because as of now we just focus on teaching them maths, physics, chemistry and social science and all of that, but it never includes anything what we actually need in real life. I mean, most of it what I learned in school, I don't even remember. So we need to have more sessions of on values for them, having activities that can help them understand it, and so on. uh, the other ninth solution that we have here is promotion of sustainable agriculture and farming practices. Obviously, there is farming happening across India, and in Kerala particularly, there are even though the amount of farmland is reducing, there is still farming happening, and the diversification is also happening because people are moving from other to other crops. Um, so why we are pushing for sustainable agriculture and farming practice? Now, sustainable agriculture doesn't mean that an agriculture practice where you don't use pesticides at all or insecticides at all or fertilizer at all. Um, it, it is very popularly known that to feed the population in India, we will have to use up to an extent some of these. But the problem here is that we end up overusing, which affects the ecosystem, which affects the human beings consuming it affects a lot of the natural organism that is there in the environment and so on. So that is a major problem. The aspect of sustainable agriculture is to promote move from monoculture to ways of farming where you integrate crops. You grow 2 to 3 different types of crops in an area, which helps each other, which helps with nitrogen fixing, which helps with soil recovery, which helps in sustainable practices that help in promoting or enriching the soil rather than degrading the soil. So sustainable practices which can capture more carbon dioxide, sustainable practices which can help uh, in producing in a very sustainable manner, at the same time ensuring sustainability of the land and future as well. So this is one of the important solutions that we promote. In fact, one of the sub solutions is intensification of rice. So this is a method where less water is used to in a paddy field to grow rice, because paddy fields with a lot of water produces a lot of methane. So if we can move to a much more sustainable system, then this can help as well. uh, Now, the eighth one, I'm moving a little faster because it's taking more time than expected. The eighth one is implement local location-specific soft and hard solutions in coastal regions. Now, why? Now, it might be hard for people to understand what is local location, soft and hard solutions. Uh, the long stretch of 5 kilometers of the coastal stretch in Kerala is being pushed for, has been facing a lot of issues. Some are facing issues associated to sea surge, some coastal flooding, some are facing issues associated to availability of fish, because of which their livelihood and major source of protein is been impacted. So considering all of this, uh, we now clearly know and are able to as well analyze the kind of impact next 10 or 15 years can have on the coastal belt of Kerala. So considering these, we need to figure out how we can how we can how we can implement solutions in the coastal belt that can reduce the impact of future flooding. Now, there are two types of solutions for coastal regions. There is a soft solution, there is a hard solution. Solution is infrastructural solution, where you'll have to install dikes, or you'll have to install cement structures or so to reduce the impact of coastal flooding and sea surges. Now, why we mentioned location specific is because in some regions, this is the best option. Now, we have to identify which are those regions. At the same way, there are also soft solutions. Soft solutions are the natural solutions which can be implemented in most of the regions, but we need to identify which region and what is the soft solution that can be used there. Soft solution can be include planting of restoring of coastal mangroves. It can be of restoration of a planting of trees in coastal regions. The kind of species that we can grow in a coastal region, restoring coral reefs are some of the soft solutions that we can implement to reduce the risk of coastal flooding, as well to improve the productivity of the ocean, for so that it helps fishing community to maintain a sustainable uh, um, fish catch and thus income. Now, the next one is very close to my heart, which is a seventh one, which is improving climate governance and local government institutions. Maybe Gayatri, since you work with the government, is something that you should understand. Try to realize and like see if something can be done. Uh, Now, whenever a disaster occurs, or disaster or any kind of problem occurs, climate disaster or any kind of development challenge occurs, the first one to respond is the local institutions. It could be the panchayat, the municipality, or corporation in certain regions, but they are the first ones to respond. And in order to take action for any of the climate-based projects, it's the various government institutions and government bodies that take action. But is our government institutions, do they have the capacity, to work on some of these solutions? Do they have the knowledge to solve the crisis? Do they have knowledge to do disaster risk reduction activities? Do they have the knowledge to work on implementing various solutions? So this is a area where the word climate governance comes into. Climate governance is that in the local governance itself, local governance or the state governance or the national governance itself, um, the aspect of climate governance comes in. How can climate change based issues be tackled by the government at various levels? But what is missing here is that the lack of capacity is what is missing. In our panchayats, if we look, we don't have enough experts who knows about climate change. The elected members or elected representatives might not know as well on the climate change impacts and how they can contribute. What are the projects that they can do? How can they apply for funding? How can they get support from various? How can they get funding from government schemes itself to implement climate action and so on? So this is where the major aspect of improving climate governance comes in. Now, during a discussion with a expert, a government officer at the irrigation department, he was mentioning that it's only after 2018 that there has been a lot of capacity building that is happening for government officials, especially working in environment department, water department, etc. Till then, there was no kind of training. It was most of them, civil engineers who just wrote the government exam, got through, and came in. After once you come in, then it's more or less life of just going and doing the usual paperwork. This is what is happening. But uh, what is not there is enough capacity building for these government officials, so that they can improve their knowledge, they can be updated on action, what that can they do, what can be improved, how they can do. So such things are not happening. So it is of utmost importance that we work on improving climate governance in at various levels, at the local level through panchayats, municipalities, by providing experts to them. So one of the suggestions that we have here is to have an expert for every 4 panchayat in Kerala. So we have around thousand something 1020 or so panchayats in Kerala, or yeah, and if we have an expert for each every 4 panchayat, an environment expert who can be there for 4 panchayats each, this can improve waste management in these panchayats, because there is an expert who can clearly tell what to do. It can improve disaster risk reduction in the panchayat. It can help in implementing mitigation projects in the panchayat, and so on, or the local body for that matter. So again, this is also a solution that I guess every state should implement. At least in Kerala, thankfully, we have a very strong local governance system, which helps a lot in implementation, because at least 30% of all the funds that the state utilizes directly goes to the panchayat, and they have the capacity to use, which is amazing. But at the same time, we have also, through my research at World Institute of Sustainable Energy, we found that uh, uh, they doesn't have the capacity to raise funds. Like for example, if a panchayat is facing a particular situation, they're not able to raise funds to solve it. They don't know how to raise funds. Also, the sixth one here is scaling adoption of decentralized rooftop solarization. This is a solution where each one of us can contribute, because Kerala has houses which have open roofs. Every house has at least a roof area of 500 to 1000 square feet, a minimum of 500 square feet for sure. Every house has a roof of 500 square feet. Now, imagine if all our households have roof solar on top of it, right? It could drastically bring down the energy consumption of Kerala by depending on other states, especially on coal power plants in other states. Kerala produces a mix of energy, some part of it very small, I guess, less than 10% from solar and so on, around 30 to 40% from hydro projects, and a major chunk, 50 to 60% from uh, um, thermal power plants from other states. So this has to change, for which if because we being in the tropics, we get a lot of sunlight. So utilizing that, which we get for 12 hours a day, and that too every month, that we get that much of solar radiation, has to be utilized and converted into free energy. uh, uh, the best thing about rooftop solarization is that, see, a household of 3 to 4 only needs 2 kilowatts of per day, 2 to 3 kilowatts. No, sorry, 8 to 12 units per day. Which means if you have a rooftop solar system of 2 kilowatt, that can produce up to 8 kilowatt hour units of current every day, which would be enough for a household of 3 to 4. Unless you have an electric car or electric stove, this should be more than enough to meet all the energy demands. uh, and and the cost for installing a 2 or 3 kilowatt of solar energy power grid on the rooftop is only less than 1 to 1.5 lakhs, and this rooftop solar can stay for more than 15 years and provide free energy throughout. At the same time, you can save costs, save the environment, and so on. So adoption of solar rooftop at a faster rate is important for Kerala, because we can do that, because we have a lot of rooftop space, and government is providing subsidies, and you don't have to get batteries now, because you can directly connect towards the grid, which means you become a solar generation company sort. Yeah. That way every household has been empowered. uh, the fifth one is conservation of paddy fields. Kerala has a large area of land which are paddy fields and where paddy fields. Now, conservation of whatever paddy field we had is one major thing. So not convert, whatever we have, conserving that, not converting it into land for something else is one of the most important thing. And at the same time, if we can restore some of the old paddy fields to its past glory, nothing like that. So can we think of ways in which we can restore some of the paddy fields? I was interestingly talking to a close friend of mine who was asking me what he can do to like protect the environment. So I was like joking very from, and then I said, do one thing, see if you can buy some paddy land and just protect it as it is. Simple. I mean, this is one of the simplest thing that you can do. I mean, because in Kerala, paddy lands are, I guess, you get it at the cost of even 10,000 to 20,000 a cent, which is not huge for a lot of well paid professionals. So even if you can just buy a paddy land and protect it as it is, and if you lease it for free for some farmers to do paddy cultivation, I think that is the best thing that Kerala can now do to just protect paddy land. So protecting paddy fields and then restoration of paddy, the paddy fields that we had, I think that's a brilliant thing that if we can do nothing like that. The fourth one is to prioritize funding climate adaptation or resilience projects over development projects that can have a negative impact. Now, this is a very important thing to give priority for projects, climate projects. Now, this is something that the government has to do and the people have to push to do. We need to invest on projects that can have a positive impact and not a negative one. Now, what is happening is that due to the development pressure, the government has been pushing a lot of projects that will have a major negative impact on the environment. So can we stop doing that and promote projects that can really really sort of reduce the impact and help Kerala adapt. Now, this is the case for most of the states, not just for Kerala. So we need to invest on resilience projects. Resilience projects would be restoration of the wetlands, restoration of forests, etc. Conservation of forests, conservation of wetlands, seeing how you can increase revenue by conserving them. For example, integrating tourism to conservation is a major chunk because Kerala is a major tourist destination. Can we utilize funds towards restoring the land and using the tourism income to make sure that it is sustainable, it remains sustainable. So uh, till now I've been talking to, mostly I felt like I've been talking to just Snowy because you are the only person with the video on. So thank you for that. If anyone else can put the video on, I can then talk to you as well. So or else it's just me and Snowy talking. All right. So the other thing is the third important solution that we suggest is promoting ecosystem for climate entrepreneurs in Kerala, thus providing more jobs and so solving climate change. Now, we all know that every other state is looking forward to provide more and more jobs to people. How can we provide more jobs to people is a question that every other state is looking forward to. Now, what if we can provide jobs and at the same time save the planet or protect the planet or protect the environment? There would be nothing like that, right? So climate enterprises or climate entrepreneurs is a way through which you can actually protect the environment or provide solutions for environment protection, at the same time create a lot of jobs. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. There is a startup in based in somewhere in the northeast India where they took flowers from the temples that came for puja and all of that, and the flower waste was converted into agarbattis, and then now they sold the agarbattis as a product that came from the flowers of puja, because of which they were able to sell. Now this particular project had multiple co-benefits. One, it became an enterprise. Women who made the agarbattis got paid, women who collected the flowers got paid, the temple got paid partially, the amount of waste that reached, amount of floral waste that reached the water bodies came down. See, now what happens when a lot of flower waste goes to the water bodies is that it leads to um, leachates, and it leads to methane production, and it also reduces the quality of the water, because of which we need to reduce the amount of organic content that reaches the water bodies. Now, this particular project had multiple co-benefits. Agarbatti is something that every Indian use. Obviously, there is some emission from that, very minimal, but it's part of the culture. Now, you can't just ask people to stop using agarbattis, but you can produce something sustainable and sell it, and thus create income, provide jobs. Now, providing job is one important thing, because before sustainability, ensuring that everyone has job is important. I would say, like, that is the most important thing. So if you can create jobs by becoming sustainable, nothing like that. So similarly, in Kerala, there are startups which are working on producing energy from hydrogen. There are a couple of startups working on reducing food waste through various innovations, converting food waste into biogas and so on. So there's so many innovations that the young startups from Kerala can work. In fact, very proudly, one of our climate leaders is working on a startup where they've been trying to produce highly protein rich meat alternative. The idea is to provide affordable meat alternatives to the population, so that we can reduce the dependence on meat. And even Sham here is working on some innovations which can support communities he's also a climate leader. He's been working on supporting communities in rural areas and bringing innovations into how enterprises can be built and so on. So promoting enterprises is something that we also have been doing at Astera. Up to an extent, we have been trying to support a couple of startups in whatever way possible. The second most important thing that we realize is using Tozhilorappu or Manrega. In Tamil, what is it called, Snowy?
What is it?
Manrega, what is it called in Tamil?
100 நாள் வேலைவாய்ப்பு திட்டம், 100
Yeah,
days.
100 days of work. And in Kerala, we have it it's called Tozhilorappu, or in English, it's called Manrega, or Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Now, yes, this particular project has been a game changer. For it has supported hundreds of families. It has provided ensured income to a lot of women, especially families, I would say, and women and men, but mostly women and families. And uh, but mostly through Manrega, what has been happening is that in a lot of places, people just sign, do some basic work and go. Now, this is an opportunity for states to utilize Manrega for like restoration of the planet, or restoration of the land and livelihoods. So through Manrega in Kerala, there has been some efforts in that way. There has been efforts in panchayats to promote afforestation drives. There has been efforts through Manrega to restore rivers, canals. There has been efforts to restore ponds, which all helps. Even restoration of paddy field is happening through some of the Manrega schemes. Plantation drives, afforestation is happening through Manrega. So can we utilize Manrega for eco restoration is one of the major questions that we need to see and answer, because by doing that, it's a force that we have which is underutilized, I would say. It's not that the women are or the men who are part of Manrega is not able to or ready to work. It's just that in many panchayats there is no work to do, or they don't know what to do. You can't really blame the panchayat as well, because they don't know what to do. Now, if we have an expert in every four panchayats, then certainly the expert can tell what the panchayat has to do. Now, and finally, coming to the last and the most important solution that we believe is the one that is required in Kerala is we need more local weather stations across Kerala in improving early warning system. Now, this might be something that is a bit tough for people, and why people asking why this is the most important solution, so on. The reason why this is considered as the most important solution is because uh, Kerala as a state has been facing severe rainfall, especially flash floods that happen. Now, the current system of weather stations that we have are very sort of uh, there are very few weather stations placed in several different locations. Now, can we move from a system where more and more local weather stations are kept and communities are empowered to maintain it and collect the data, so that this data can be used to identify when rainfall is going to happen, and this can help really communities to move faster, like to move to a safer place faster, or even protect their crops. For farmers, this live data that comes in can really help them to shift agriculture practices, or understand about the weather changes really faster than, so that they can take action, especially in terms of paddy cultivators. If they know when the rainfall is going to come, and if it's going to rain tomorrow for sure, or if it's going to rain heavily tomorrow, they can take action to um, pump out water, or they may do things such as that, so that they can reduce the losses caused due to such disaster. So having more local weather stations at I'm not an expert technically to talk more on that, but having more local weather stations improves data. That data can be certainly used for faster movement of families that might be affected because of a flash flood or a landslide, or for farmers it can be helpful in making right decision making as well. So so these are some of the major benefits of having more and more local weather stations. Now, uh, as such, the installation cost of a weather station can be less than 1,000 rupees. That is when you just keep a rain gauge in which you can build by yourself. But in order to make it more accurate, or in order to make sure that the data is being centralized, or it can be passed on to anyone and who needs the data, uh, we'll have to invest on weather stations that will cost up to like between 1 to 2 lakh rupees, and more in possibly in every panchayat, or even more shorter scales, so that the grid size of the data is quite accurate. And most importantly, the data also should be available for the public to sort of work on, because now what is happening is whatever data is there, it's been held on by the government and kept in closed spaces or computers, which they don't give to researchers and so on, or sometimes they ask huge money to do that, which has to change. In Kerala, things are changing a bit, because now there is more data being given publicly for research studies and so on. But if we have more weather stations, and if we have more live data that is being fed into a system and is being openly made public then and there, it can help a lot of researchers continue their research, do analysis, do make models out of it, and so on. So that is something that is very important for Kerala, and we have to invest, because Kerala now knows that it's going to rain frequently. We're going to have flash floods frequently. So in that case, we need to have more weather stations, which can drastically improve the accuracy of the way in which data can be sent out to people. So yes, these are the 15 solutions. I guess all of you understood and realized what the 15 solutions are. So these are the 15 solutions will be identified as some of the most important ones. Obviously, there are more than 15 solutions, but the main idea was to simplify the knowledge for people to understand and realize what the some of the most important solutions are. And the video through which the video wa- the video explains it very nicely and very subtly, so that everyone who knows Malayalam can understand the solutions in a much more nicer manner. And we are also trying to develop a document which the CLP leaders have been doing, but not so fast. ഇത്തിരി മടിയൊക്കെ ഉണ്ട്, but it's from our side as well. We are also all trying to push making that document, so that that document can go to for students to read even in future 10 years down the line. If we have something like this, it's certainly going to help students and professors, or even local bodies realize and understand what some of the solutions are. So we're working on that. Now it's time for any questions or suggestions or points that anyone would like to make. I'll also be happy to see some of the faces if possible, and then we can wind up.
So I have one question regarding the sustainable menstruation. So you told you reduced the price of the cup from 500 to 50, right? Like, how did you really do that?
Yeah, so that is through something called cross subsidy. We subsidize the prices of cups by one. We help the panchayat develop a project to be given to the state government, because every panchayat in Kerala has the ability to apply for specific, like, unique projects. Apart from the common ones everyone has to do, you can apply for some unique projects. And Muhamma, we worked with the panchayat in developing a proposal that they gave for around 5 lakh rupees, I guess, which would then subsidize the prices down to 50 rupees.
Okay.
Apart from that, a tree as well raised some funds through CSR and so on to help in subsidizing of the cups and cloth bags at a very, so that is how we gave it at a very small price.
Okay.
It is quite possible when you take like small regions like a panchayat and all, to find funding for a panchayat. It's quite easy.
Mm.
And as such, Snowy, the wholesale price of cups is, I guess, less than 80 rupees, the wholesale
Okay.
price. Now,
Mm-hmm.
one of the reason why the cups are expensive is because the companies which sell, including my friend's company, Boond, which sells cups, they say that they, unlike the sanitary napkins, which has a recurring customer. So you buy a sanitary napkin, you again buy the next month also, or
Mm-hmm.
next month also you buy a sanitary napkin. You have a customer that buys you from you every month.
Mm.
Now, the companies like Booth, you buy once, you buy after 10 years. So because of which, like, they don't have that kind of income that can support the whole company. This is the same case with all the products that we use for more than 5 years. Most of the products, such as mobiles or laptops or TVs, etc. The actual cost might be very less, but they sold at a higher price because of the various aspects involved. That's more of a yeah, background thing. But I think at least in the case of cups, the wholesale price is around 80 only. So
Okay. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so if you're planning to do it in a panchayat or a municipality, if you want to buy 1,000 cups, it just going to cost 80,000 rupees probably. Yeah,
Mm. Okay.
yeah, 80,000 rupees.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can find some subsidy, then you can give it at half the price, let's say 40. But again, the how can you use word of marketing tool to get it out there to more and more women is the most important thing. Because
Mm-hmm.
even for the case of cups, in case of my friends as well, like
Mm.
one of them start to use it, they tell another person that this is bliss, this is the best, then they
Mm.
start using it. Now they start, at least they start to try. So that's how it works. Word of mouth marketing is the best. And in
Mm-hmm.
rural areas it happens even faster, because
Yeah.
they always come together, they sit together, and then that's the success of the project in Mohamba, at least.
Okay.
So
Okay. The area is called Mohamba.
Mohamba, yeah, in Alapura.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Vishnu. Yeah, Snowy, is that it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Vishnu, go ahead.
Hi, Sanju. Network is very less. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
So I try to online. Hi. So I just want to
Okay, I think you it's better you off the video, because now you're not.
tell like it was good now. Is that audible?
Yeah, now it's audible.
Okay.
Yeah, it's audible
So
now.
the 15 points which I have seen before itself. So it was a good uh, initiative with the participation of other stakeholders like the students and other people. So from that, I could just tell like the way which we are thinking, like most of the entities, government or any other entities. So we'll be doing some solutions. For example, we are promoting e-vehicle, we are promoting solar panel like that. So it will be good for now. That's for sure. So after 15 years or after 10 years or after the life of one e-vehicle, so how it will be the process, how the next process, how it will be. if there's a solar panel now, like most of the people started to use solar panel in their rooftop. So after 15 years, 10 to 15 years, it will be a bunch of waste coming from this solar panel thing. And now, as of now, there is no any way of like a rule or law or process for recycling or upcycling this solar panel or reusing this solar panel. So that's the issue which we are facing. Like we will be doing the solution, but for now, but we are not thinking about the long-term solution or long-term process or long-term aspects. So that's one of the like query about the solar panel and e-vehicle which we are promoting now. But because after 15 years, we should not be thinking that that was a burden at that time. So our next generation also should not think about that. So that's one of the thing.
Yeah.
And other than that, one other thing is that about the disaster which we are facing in Kerala, particularly Kerala. So as compared to other areas like other part of our world or other part of India, the human loss is very less less compared to the economic loss. Everywhere economic loss is higher than human loss because somewhat the early warning is somewhat it is okay, but compared to other areas, Kerala is much better. Human loss is very less, and the economic loss is high, which we can't do anything because if the early warning is there also, we there is very few time which we will be getting for recovering some economic aspects or livelihood aspects. But the one of the issue which I think the human loss is there is in landslides, so which is a very much important or very much menace which is Kerala is facing because so many like as the inequality is there, the people will be moving to the high range areas, which the most of the areas will be like the land value will be less than compared to the other areas. So most of the low income people will be coming to those areas, and there they became vulnerable. And so landslides as such, we are not capable of doing an early warning because we can see that we can tell because in the Gargill report they told that these areas are very much vulnerable and you should go away from, or it is not capable of living there. But that is one of the issue which we are facing. Okay.
Okay.
So that
Thank you,
aspects
Vishnu.
also, if we can
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. Yeah, so the second point, I totally agree with you. And in the first point, regarding the solar waste and the battery waste, this is a very important concern that most of the researchers and futurists are, raising. Certainly, so one of the important aspects that we look into is here is that um, energy demand is on the rise, and more energy is being required every year as more people are demanding for more energy, and we consume devices or things that require more energy, and with more industrialization, the energy demand is certainly going to rise. Now, if given a chance, stopping that industrialization or energy demand itself would have been the best thing to do, but unfortunately that is not happening. Now, because of which you need more energy. Now, we now know that comparatively among the options available for energy production, solar and windmills are the most sustainable one. But again comes the question, where do you use the batteries and what do you do with the solar panels and so on? Into this, the only thing I have to respond is that currently, from what I know, there is a large scale work happening on recovery aspects. Now, every government, especially in the developed nations, they are focusing on recovery, because in UK and Europe, a lot of cars which were bought 10 years before electric cars are now being sent for recycling. The batteries are sent for recycling. They're trying to figure out ways in which batteries can be recycled completely, and and even 100% recovery of silicon, how can be done by that through solar panels. So this has been extensively been tested, and there has been a lot of progress. Scientifically, there has been a lot of progress. Now, how fast can we adopt to this is a question that we certainly have to answer. Now, if you ask me what is the, if the world asks what is the best and most sustainable way of production of energy without the need of any, without much impact on the environment or a future impact on the on the planet or the future generations, it would have been nuclear energy. Now, because from a very small space, you can produce a lot of energy, and but are we going to support nuclear? Are we going to support it? Even I might not support nuclear energy plant near my house. So nuclear energy is one of the, in that way, it's one of the most sustainable. But human beings, I mean, we are not going to agree to that, or at least we are not going to support implementation of, especially in regions such as India, where most of the regions are population dense, we can really promote nuclear power plants. So what is then the next thing is wave energy. Wave energy hasn't reached anywhere, and it is not also stable source of energy. So the world is looking out for technologies which needs to be stable, and this is also why we need more innovators that come ahead and work on solutions technologies. Because in Kerala, I mean, I personally know a lot of engineering, we have a lot of engineering colleges, and a lot of engineering colleges students develop innovations, technologies, and so on, but most of them ends up in a paper or a PDF, and that's it, right? So what if actually we could translate all of that into the good ones, at least into practical solutions? So this is something that we have to look into, as well as currently the efficiency of the solar panels is quite comparatively less, in terms of it doesn't produce the 100% energy it can, but that also, that aspect is also being looked into. And along with implementing of rooftop solar, it's also important to improve efficiency of the thermal power plants. Now, it's not that the thermal power plants we can completely avoid it, it's still going to be there, but improving efficiency of thermal power plants is also important. That is a major aspect that they are also working on. Now, in regard to the second question, you are a better disaster management expert than me, because you have done a master's in disaster management, and this particular this was considered the need for having more weather stations was considered as a most important solution, because a lot of experts suggested it is a most important solution for Kerala, because currently the data availability is very minimal. So scaling it up is more important. I could give you some more insights after consulting with probably Srija or Madhu from Equinox, because they have been extensively working in this area, researching in this area, and yeah. All right. So okay, I'll quickly take a question from Munir, and maybe one more question if someone have, and then wind up. Yeah, Munir, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sanju. Happy to connect again. And sorry, I couldn't switch on the camera before because of the patchy network here. So I'll just give an introduction about myself, brief introduction. I'm Munir, and I actually did college with Sanju, I think a year junior to you at this. I work with an organization called PATH. We are a public health organization, and headquartered in US, Seattle, and we work in India and across 23 countries. And in PATH, we have just initiated a portfolio on climate change and health. The impact, basically looking into the impact of climate change into public health, and I work with that portfolio right now. So, I mean, we don't have any active projects. We are actually looking into building that portfolio, building more collaborations, and so one of the things that actually struck me, and I actually came to this session after watching the YouTube video. It was very informative, and again, your talk was also very enriching as well. A couple of things that I just want to add, and just my opinion, just my suggestions. One is when you talked about making green infrastructure. one of the things that we are interested in coming from the public health space is also building green and climate resilient healthcare facilities. That starts from sub-centers and primary healthcare centers to tertiary hospitals as well. Like it's not just solarization, but also use of energy efficient devices and equipment within public health facilities within primary health centers. And also looking at the it's also like energy auditing of primary health centers, how we can make the processes more energy efficient. So that's something that we are interested in, and that's something that we could also explore how we can do in Kerala and other states as well, in collaboration with health and family welfare department. So that's one thing. And I was also interested in knowing a bit more about your when you talked about climate governance or empowering local self-government institutions on climate response. So layering on a public health aspect to it, because because the impact of climate change on public health, and we are seeing that a lot nowadays in the form of heat waves, and also and that leading to many other disease outcomes as well. So for example, we are seeing a change in vector ecology also, like in areas which were not seeing a lot of vector borne diseases before, are seeing like because of the increase in temperature, are seeing vector borne diseases, increased frequency of vector borne diseases. So also empowering local self-government institutions in in creating awareness, more awareness on these things. I think one of the first things I think would be heat waves, heat-related illness, HRIs, and also air pollution, and then vector-borne diseases. So that would something layering a bit of public health into this, aspects of public health into this. And also when we talk about climate resilient health facilities, another thing that comes to my mind is also building more disaster resilient healthcare facilities as well, because most of the times health facilities are the primary responders during a disaster. But if you don't have like a resilient infrastructure for primary health centers or other public health facilities, then that becomes problematic in a disaster prone area. So building more such prime health resilient facilities. So some of these things I think could be, we could work more upon. And I would also like, just take this opportunity to, say that, we could explore more collaborations in this field.
Sure, Munir, very much, and that's an important step that you're taking in terms of working on climate change, connecting climate change and health, because the health systems are not resilient as of now, at least climate resilient in our state, and that is an aspect that has to be pushed. More importantly than having energy efficient hospitals and or health centers, we need to build resilient health centers. I guess that would be the first step that we should take, because as you clearly mentioned, they are the first responders. So we need the such spaces to be much more resilient, much more able to at many a time when disaster strikes, whether it's a flood or a sea surge or a earthquake or any other such climate environment disasters as well. Health centers act a lot, and if they are impacted, if they are not resilient, if they are not able to hold up, it affects the whole community, it affects the whole region. So I guess that is an important area to start with, and then certainly building energy efficient, sustainable health spaces as well is quite important. And as you clearly mentioned, integrating it with climate governance would make a big difference with the number of increase in vector-borne diseases. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone else would like to comment or maybe ask? Maybe we'll just take one last question or comment and then wind up. It's already been too late. It's been an hour and a half. Yeah, most of the time this happens. All right. So in that case, Thanks everyone for joining, especially at an odd time, which is 12 in the afternoon. It's also because I'm in the UK currently, and this is the best time today that I could take a session. So thanks a lot for joining, and it was really enriching to see you all and the interesting questions and also the comments from all of you. Hope it helped. Hope the session helped, and hope you all will be able to take action individually or professionally to your organization or wherever you're working, and hoping to connect paths again soon. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, everyone. Ending the call.
Bye.